Hi all, welcome to this latest edition of Off the Post. Apologies for being kind of inconsistent with it over the last month or so. Just joys of work and other bits and bobs, and just try to find the time to fit everything in, and just doesn't always go to plan. So basically for this edition, I thought I would spend a good chunk of time talking about not just VAR. The one area that I have hated a lot lately in games is the added time. Basically, I've seen it more and more this season especially, but obviously that's because of the rules. Obviously the World Cup last year had it extensively, but more so with how this season has gone, not just in the UK, but when I watch games in France or Germany or Netherlands, wherever it may be, the amount of added time that I am seeing in games week in and week out is almost kind of startling. And just to kind of illustrate that further, I was going through notes on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and so forth, Discords. There was one game about a couple of weeks ago, and it had 31 minutes of stoppage time for that game, and I was like, 31 minutes, and I actually found not the game, but I'd found match highlights. Someone had put up about a 12-15 minute highlight package on the game on YouTube, and I still can't work out how for how it was 31 minutes, because the league in question did not have VAR in the league. There was I checked up on the internet about it. Basically, there was no fan had collapsed in the ground, or that there'd been a bad injury. There hadn't been anything. And I was like, how was there 31 minutes? And once I had done a bit more digging on it, we found out the reason, I think, why. And the reason why there was 31 minutes is because everyone from the officials to the players themselves were just playing everything really, really slowly. Basically, when it was a goal kick, if you were taking a goal kick, it was, say, if it's maybe 10-second rule or what, I can't remember, I should really know the rules off the top of my head, but they were taking that long. So instead of 10 it was 20. The referees were taking that long to decide with set pieces or corners. There was a penalty and they were taking ages to be settled with the ball in the centre circle. I thought everything was just so slow and tedious, and that's what it was. It was so the game was one of the earliest games that kicked off. We'll just say for 3 o'clock. I can't remember the exact time it started. I'm sure it was a 3 o'clock kickoff. The game was due to start at 3. The first half did not finish till 4 o'clock. I think it was 4:01. And the second half did not finish until just after 5 o'clock. I think it was 5:15 or something. And you say to yourself, how on earth is this happening? And the thing was, there was games all up and down the country where they were finishing later and later. It was well after 5 o'clock. There was one, I think the longest I've properly seen for when I've been watching games, either it be on YouTube or when I've been keeping an eye on Flash Score or whatever. There was one game, I think the game was on BBC, I think, last week, and the first half had 16 or 17 minutes for the first half alone. I think it was this season it had been the longest first half anywhere in the world for that season, if you want to say, for say Europe. And I thought, so we've played 62 minutes or 63 minutes, and there hasn't been really any VAR checks, there hasn't been much action, as it were. But then the second half, I think, was something like 55 or 56 minutes. And what made it annoying was, I think the game kicked off at 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock. And we'll say, I think whatever the next game was meant to be on that channel, I think because there was 2 games that day on the channel, the second game, literally, we'll say, whoever's presenting, literally had to go straight into the next game. He didn't have any of the post-game analysis to say, what do you think of that game? You had none of that. You literally had to wait till half time of the second game to kind of give a little bit on it, because it allowed people to talk about it. And I thought, and even then it was brief because they waited till the end of the second game to finally talk about the first game. So I was like, you've basically spent, at this point it was near enough, say 2 hours later, two and a half hours later, before we finally talk about the first game. And I thought, I can't believe what's going on here, but joys of how it all played out, and it just kind of shows. And I think also what doesn't help with the whole added time element is when we have like leagues that have VAR, is they do take ages to go over things. So they'll like, and what annoys me is the decisions themselves can be done so much quicker, and it goes back to officials where they should go to the monitor, especially when, if they get told, oh, there's a VAR check, if they're standing in the middle of the pitch or penalty box or whatever it may be on the pitch, they should literally be right. Instead of the fingers in the ear, which annoys me, they should literally just be right. Let's go at the monitor, let's all look at it together, and that way try and get it over as quick as possible to say, right, if needed, depending where it is, if the linesman or the fourth official is, in fact, as long as they're all connected in, you'd maybe then say the linesman that gave, say it's an offside, but say we're not sure, as it were, say the official gave it as offside, but they've say they scored from it. Say if all the referee needs to do with the linesman and that in the ear, but also with the VAR officials to then say, right, I gave that as we'll just say assistant linesman 1 gave it as offside, let's look at the VAR check, blah blah blah, with the referee in front, and if the referee, while watching everything getting done with the lines and the angles, and then they can say, oh, assistant linesman 1 gave it as offside, it turns out actually he was wrong or she was wrong, and it was actually just onside by just say a smidgen, reverse the decision, the goal stands. And say if it hadn't been like done that quickly, we'll say that took all of maybe say 30 seconds. Say with everything going on with all the fingers in the ears and all the calming down all the players and all that kind of stuff, say that's like 2 or 3 minutes. You've basically saved say 2 minutes of time to get right back into the game. But at the same time, you want something that is pretty conclusive, because you don't want to be celebrating a goal when you say, right, we'll play with goal, like goal, and then you'll play on, kick off, and then get told in the ear, oh, by the way, we have to look at this goal, should be there and then, rather than say a minute or 2 down the line, oh, by the way, it's actually offside, or there was a foul or a handball, we never seen it. There needs to, like, rugby's got a good system, but I feel football literally has its own right in its face. Like, if I was a referee, and I always find it funny, during like the UEFA Champions League, Europa League, Conference League games last week, they were pushing very heavily, be a referee, and I'm like, I wouldn't want to be a referee, but if I was a referee, I would, 1, make sure I know all my rules, but 2, whenever there was a VAR check, I'd be straight at that monitor, and I'd be like, right, let's see what we're looking at. Is it a foul? Is it a red card? Is it a handball? What are we looking at? Let's get this sorted. I want it quick and painless. That way that we can then get on with the game, because I don't want the fans getting restless, and I want players to be calm, because at the end of the day, shouldn't be taking a day and an age to decide something, and it turns people off football really at the end of the day. It slowly turns me off of football, because there was one a couple of weeks ago with Mallorca v Betis. Mallorca, was it Betis or Sociedad? It was whichever one I might have got myself. It was one of the Reals, I'm sure. And basically Mascarell got sent off. I think it was a straight red or second yellow, I can't remember. And basically he got sent off, and there was no VAR check, no nothing. He was fouled and they sent him off, and I'm like, and what made it all the more damning was that Mallorca themselves, across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, basically all social media platforms, basically got the image of the foul from the Betis or Sociedad player, whoever it was that game, that it was like Mascarell has been fouled and he's been sent off. I'm like, and I even watched it and I'm like, he was fouled. I'm like, he's been fouled and he's been sent off. I'm like, it's like officiating becoming that bad now that we can't even get the decisions right. I'm like, you're fouling the player and sending him off because he's been completely crunched in his ankle or his thigh, whatever it was. I'm like, and it looked bad because you saw the freeze frame and you thought that could have been like a broken ankle, could have been a broken thigh, could have been anything, could have been a broken foot, could have been absolutely anything. It was literally could have been that whole bottom right of, like the whole bottom side of his body could have been completely broken in bits because of how like studs in, because you could see this, it was literally a studs in tackle and you knew it was bad. And it's kind of baffling really how so many games up and down the UK, like Scotland, England, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and it's like the VAR stuff. Like one of the games, there was another game, was it last week before, and it was kind of similar again. It was, but the difference was it was a goal. It was I think it was one of the earlier kickoffs in Italy, might have been, and the team had scored, but they went and done a VAR check because they weren't convinced. They were thinking, was it offside? But then they thought, I think, was it a foul? But then when you looked at it, I think it was actually a handball. It was like, so they were looking for, I think, the offside when I think he was onside. Then I think they looked for three different things. I'm like, well, you've said it was for offside when it wasn't. He was onside. You've looked for a foul when it wasn't a foul. You've then looked at a handball. You've literally weren't decisive about it. And I thought, if you're not sure, and like, come on, it's like, have a word. It's like, it shouldn't take that long to decide things. And further from that, it's like player welfare in general just now has actually been pretty shocking. Like when you think of the other rules that annoy me, or annoy a lot of fans I should say, is when offsides in general, if the player was offside, even when they eventually are offside I should say, it was very common just before the last World Cup, players when they were just offside, they kept playing on and then they ended up getting taken out by a defender or a goalie and they were getting injured. And what made it annoying was the players then were maybe say national team players and they were now suddenly going to miss a World Cup because they didn't blow the whistle for an offside say 10 seconds sooner, and they thought, oh, we'll play on. Like, why are you playing on when it's like you knew it was offside, but let's play on? And it goes back to the age-old argument of many years ago, Robin van Persie, when he didn't hear the offside apparently, and what was it? I think that was when he eventually got sent off for it because he scored, and it's like, well, he never heard. And obviously in this modern age you say, well, you should be blown for the offside right away, that way we know what's going on, because we don't want to risk player welfare, especially if a player gets injured. Because I think it was a couple of weeks ago, last week, whenever, and it was basically same again. The player was through on goal, 1-on-1, they got taken out by the goalie, and I think they're out for 8 weeks. But if they basically blew for the offside right away, they would have been fine. It was like they would never have got fouled. It was like the goalie literally, I think what had basically happened was the player had went through on goal. Nobody had blew for offside. The player had went round the goalie, and I think the goalie had fouled the forward, like clipped them with their their arm, and they went down. But they managed to put the ball in the back of the net prior to it all happening. They managed to get the ball in, but they went down after they'd taken the shot, or whatever it was. I can't 100% remember if that's how. I'd have to re-watch it just to remind myself. But I was like, the players literally being in essence. Then it becomes like, well, if you're still playing on, it then becomes a foul because he won a penalty, or do you count it as a goal because he put the ball in the back of the net? It's like, or put it wide or whatever. I can't remember. He's maybe just been fouled. And I thought, this is what's wrong with football. We're playing on for the sake of it when either a player gets in, and you see a player gets unnecessarily injured, or they then argue with the officials because they're like, well, how am I meant to know it's offside? If you at least tell us, then I wouldn't need to play on. Like, I know we're all told to play at the whistle, but if a centre forward is in an offside position, and especially if they weren't a league with VAR or to do a VAR check, they might be like, oh, he was actually onside after all. I'm like, well, you blew for offside, and it goes back, it's just spirals really, and it kind of just annoys people because they'd be like, especially could be the home team, could be the away team, especially if it's the home team and that happens, you might say to yourself, could lead to, say, it goes always back to the accusations of, are the refs incompetent, or the officials incompetent in general? Is there maybe match fixing going on by the officials because they're not, they're trying to do decisions against the team, or whether it be the home team or the away team? Then you've also then got maybe goes back to betting, because obviously the players are getting done for betting just now. Do the officials getting on it? And I've seen it many a time with the VAR stuff, especially. If, say, the betting sites, I'd have to really watch these quite vigorously. It's like with the tennis. If you're able to, it's like, what do you call it? It's like court, like when you're basically at the court and you're able to beat the officials. It's been shown in a couple of like betting documentaries where, like, if you've got a slow official putting the score in, you're able to say, put the bet on, say it's 1-2 that Djokovic wins the point, and you're in quick enough before the official puts the score in, but you're then, obviously you're making money out of the bookies. My point is, if that was to happen in football, where, like, if betting does get suspended, or say there was a foul, but we're at the point where, oh, we don't know if it's like a VAR check or if it's a penalty or whatever it's going to be, if there's enough time for the officials to put bets on, or they've maybe got a third party doing it for them, because obviously they might get caught because they'd be like, oh, by the way, there was a sudden surge of bets going on at say Manchester United v Man City or Man United Liverpool, because seems like the officials were putting bets on that particular game for a red card for, say, Harry Maguire, because he's maybe committed a foul, or John Stones, whoever it may be, and you see yourself, or Van Dijk or whoever, and you see yourself, like, what is going on? The officials are getting enough time to say, oh, that's a red card, and I'm like, that's when you would then say you'd accuse cheating, because like, you would be saying to yourself, why, next red card, Virgil van Dijk, Harry Maguire, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Ruben Diaz, John Stones. You just say to yourself, like, come on folks, like, there's no need for it. And that's what I think, it goes back to the whole transparency, whole communication. If there's a VAR check, the whole stadium, the whole audience watching on telly should be able to hear it, if it's on Sky or TNT, DAZN, BN, whatever channel. And then same again, if obviously in the stadium, everyone should be able to hear it. If we can all hear everything to understand why there's been a VAR check, why there's been an offside, why there's been a penalty, if we can understand why there's been the communication, I feel then it goes back as well with players and officials, because if players are arguing with the refs, it'd be good to know what they're actually saying. Like, at the end of the day, if you're getting told you're a fat twat, or go to Specsavers because by God you can't referee a game or something, you might find there's a more behavioural difference then. If people are then able to hear, oh, by the way, you're mic'd up, this will go up on like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok tonight, and it'd be like, and it then creates more news stories, because it'd be like, hear what like Harry Maguire said to Anthony Taylor, or hear what Mikel Arteta said to Pochettino, or the fourth official, or whatever. You can then say hear everything. If that's what becomes a case of, because it goes back to the argument as well of if anyone says anything racist or anti-Semitic or whatever it may be, anything that's seen as offensive, because football players, managers should be seen as role models, or at least that's what the perception should be. Having that perception gone suddenly makes things more interesting. Because I would then say, like, you want to know what's being said, because you want, like, especially, I don't mean to sound cheeky, but you'd think for the likes of Sky and TNT being, like, the pundits especially, it would create more reason why, it would get them talking about even more, and it gives them probably more use. Because I remember, what was it, Mourinho, was it 2 or 3 weeks ago, was it the Monza game, I want to say, and he basically said to the manager, it was like, he basically shushed them and gave all the gobby hand signals, and I think it was like the crying tears or whatever. He basically done like a few different hand signals, because I think he got his second yellow or a red card, the Monza manager, and it was basically explained after the game why why Mourinho did that. And I think it was when they played the last time at the end of last season or something, and this was just Mourinho just kind of getting his own back and just kind of like rubbing salt in the wounds and being quite gleeful about it and trying to have a bit of fun. And that's the thing, it's like, if we know what's being said, I'll be honest, I'd probably enjoy football more, or maybe hate it more, who knows. It's like, because they might say things that are nasty, or you might be like, or because you're in like Discords or Twitters or Twitter groups, whatever it may be, and because you're then able to hear everything, you might then be like, oh, this is great, I can't wait to see Arteta and Pep go Watford, or Klopp and Pep and Klopp, or Emery and De Zerbi, or whoever. It's like, and then, or Sean Dyche with Roy Hodgson, you never know. It's like you want like a reason to, like, as much as we kind of like enjoy quite a few of the managers, you want to have that reason to kind of feel like that you not just relate to them a wee bit more, but understand them. Because if they're showing that bit of passion, saying like arguing with the fourth official or a ref, and you're actually able to hear it, because if there's been a decision that's went against the team, and the manager's basically like, the players have maybe had a go with the captain, but it then gets to the point where the manager's having a right good go, and it's almost needing the players to calm him down or her down, and you see yourself, my word, this is. And then people then get talking about it even more, because it's that same spiral again of like of what is going on. It's like, this is madness. It's like, this is never going to end, as it were. But it just gets more interesting by the weeks, I suppose. And things need to. I feel football needs something to freshen up. I feel, and that's what it is. It's not just freshened up, but it's more transparency is what it really needs. It's like communication, because something needs done. If it doesn't get done now, then I think that's kind of why a few leagues with like the TV deals, that's why some of them get paid the amount that they do, but also why they need kind of like reviewed in general. But it is what it is, I suppose, and you just get on with it. But I feel football, like player welfare, player behaviours, it's more like what you're kind of like seeing on, is that a day-to-day basis? Hard to truly say, but it's things that either you take for granted, or things that should be probably a little bit more better maintained. It would just be good, because it's like because nowadays we've got so many like fan TV accounts and people that like write on clubs and managers and anything that gets a story. It's like, it's like, even the papers, it's like, did you know this about that? I'm like, who cares? It's like, big whoop. But the papers or the fan TV accounts or whatever it may be, because they've obviously extensively spoken about it, you say to yourself, come on, and you just have to get on with it, really. And I feel like there's just something missing, or as I say, it's just, but we'll get there. Like, I would also say, what was it as well just now, because with a lot of the clubs, how they're like, it's like, it goes back to the argument of like how the clubs are run. You see the likes of like your Southend's, Fyldes, and so forth. There's quite a few teams up and down the division, up and down the countries, where it's like poor ownership, and like whether it be EFL or whoever, it's that governing body that is the overseers of that league that kind of help dictate if they're fit and proper or whatever. There's like, it's kind of scary when you kind of, if you were to sit down and say to yourself, here's 2-3 dozen teams where it's like poor ownership, the money that's been spent on like transfers to get the team back up the division or whatever, it's not going to plan because they've maybe spent either too much on transfer fees, agent fees, wages, whatever it may be. They've spent silly money for not just the team but also maybe say the division to try and get up that table. It's not worked, get promoted, and they're kind of like seeing the damage done, say the following season or the season after, because it was like I was looking over leagues in general, but it was just even like when you do the analysis on all these kind of things from like England and Scotland and Spain and Germany and so forth, it's kind of startling how many teams from, if you want to say from 2020 to now, and even say the 5 years prior to COVID, so like say 2015-16 to say 2020, it's very, very startling to kind of see how many teams are poorly run up and down like Europe and across like the world, you could even say. And it was like, I think when you kind of dig deeper, it's like you've got like your Readings, you've had Leyton Orient go through it, you've had I think Bolton, Blackpool, Southend, Fylde, Bury, I think Port Vale have had it briefly as well. I think who in Scotland poorly run, probably someone off the top of my head, but I can't think who. And like when you go off through like say like France, you've had Sochaux, because they've like the Peugeot family had them. Then like you go like Italy's quite had its problems with like teams that are in like Serie B, Serie C. They maybe end up in Serie B or A, and then they've ended up back down in Serie C or D. It's like and then they get back up and then they go back. It's like there's a couple of teams that have had that, and you say so like, how can you sustain that? You get relegated to D but back up to B and then back down to D. I think Palermo's been through that twice. I want to say is it Bari? I think Bari's another one that's been through that situation. Spain, like say Malaga, Deportivo, Numancia, Racing Santander's had problems, Real Oviedo, Mallorca briefly because they were in the third tier. I think there's countless teams when you really go digging in Spain. It's quite startling. Teams that have maybe been in the second tier briefly and they've ended up in the third tier, and then teams that were, they might have been consistently a third tier team, are now like say fourth or fifth tier, and you say to yourself, what has happened to these teams? Germany, Arminia Bielefeld in more recent times, Saarbrücken's had moments, Braunschweig, it's like honestly, there's like legitimately you could do one of those quizzes where it's like name every team in the last 10 years that's had either administration, something that's regarded tax, financial problems, someone that's been flagged as a bad owner, wages maybe not paid for that month. If you were to go digging around the world, you'd probably see there's hundreds of teams in that bracket. And if you were to do a quiz on that kind of thing, you'd be like, guaranteed people would run through the easy teams first, where it's been noted, but then you'd start to think over the last like 10 years, you see yourself, there'll be teams that you don't think of that have had problems. And that's when you see yourself, what is going on in football to kind of allow that to happen? Especially when there's I don't mean to sound cheeky, but there's so much wealth out there, not just from like football owners, because I think there's one thing, talking about wealth in football, the one that started with me, there was an article, start of the season, I think, what was it, he's one of the wealthiest people in the world, or supposedly, and it's like the team I think he owns or wanted to own or plans to own even, and it's like, you're that wealthy, you could buy, I think, like say Man United and this team with change. So like you could literally send the youngsters or players that need a loan to this team, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I thought, you're that rich, but it's like I think they were begrudging. I think it was, we'll say the club, was it £2.5? We'll say it was £2.5 million. I think it was in debt they were, and it was to like the previous owner. And I think the person that eventually bought it, in the end, it wasn't even this billionaire or whatever it was. It was, I think, another like multi-millionaire. I think they cleared the debt and then basically said to the this billionaire, said, look, you've wanted this club for say 25, 30 years or whatever. There, have it. It's like I've literally just I only bought it because, well, one, you were because they weren't willing to clear the debt. That was pretty much it. And because someone else has stepped in, that's, we'll just say a business rival, that's literally said, I've cleared the debt, everything belongs back to the club, there you go. And I think they were like, oh, I don't want the club. I'm like, well, make your mind up. It's like, I'm like, you literally wanted the club. It was in, say, documented well in that country's media. I can't remember if it was UK or abroad or whatever. I'd have to go digging again on it, because I remember reading it, because it was quite a good read actually. I can't remember if it was Bleacher Report or The Athletic or whoever it was that had put it up, and it was like, this was like the it was like the Jekyll and Hyde, as it were. I think they called it a football or whatever, and it was. And it, because the argument that it started was, we'll say, I think it was like the top 50 owners or something in football are all billionaires or something. I think that's what it was. It was however many people are billionaires, and this was how many it was in this article. So it was whoever had basically over £1 billion. This was however many it was, and I think it was in football, and he said it was either 50 or however many. It was really specific. And it was designed. The article was basically designed to say, this is how many billionaires are in football, and then it was like giving them like a score of like how well they're liked, how much they put in the club, under their ownership, what have they achieved. So if, say, the person had a worth of say £10 billion, for talking sakes, what have they achieved in, say, the 10 or 15 year ownership of them. And I think there was one owner, and what was it, I think they hadn't even won, I don't think they'd won a league or won a cup. I think they'd only been in like Europe once in that time under the ownership, and in the fans' eyes that was fine, in the club's eyes that was fine. But I'd be saying to myself, you've got one of the richest people in the world, and you've literally been in Europe once. I don't think they'd been relegated. I think they were literally just mid-table most of the time, and it was like 1 year they just had a run in the league that helped them finish in a European place. And I think they didn't even qualify actually for Europe. I think they qualified in through the qualifying rounds. I think because it was like their first time in about 30 years or 40 years or something being in Europe. I think it was like the 70s. I think it was like 1970s. They were in the first round of like the UEFA Cup or whatever. I think that was what it was. It was like the highest league position for say 40 years or whatever. I'm like, that's nothing really to be proud of. I thought it's great for the team that they're in Europe, but it's like they don't spend out with their means and all that kind of thing. I get that, but I thought you've got somebody that's rich that could make them a power in that league and possibly make them in a force in Europe down the line. If players are knowing that whether it be your Mbappes or your Messis or whoever, if you've got notable players to say, come to this team, yes, you're going to win the league quite easily, yes, it'll feel boring, but then you're going to have a chance in Europe to say look, make it worth their while to say, here's a challenge to kind of get your teeth into. You just know for 90 minutes a week in the league, it's going to be the easiest 90 minutes of your career. The only time it's going to be hard is 90 minutes in Europe, but hey ho, but it is what it is, and we'll just take it from there. But as I said, folks, football is certainly getting into an interesting position, I feel, of late, and a lot more can be done, let's put it this way. I suppose that's what we'll probably end up titling this. Football, the conundrum, what is needed to help fix it, I suppose, maybe, or what is needed in general, but it is what it is. We just get on with it and just go from there. So have a good one, folks. Take it easy all. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you all later.